All right. So here I am going to. Hello, Fishhook. This is Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. I wouldn't call it my favorite book, but there's some good lessons in here. So we'll start at the end, of course, page 500. By the way, this is Bill Brewster primarily. He's a British music commentator, if you will, historian in a sense, and in collaboration with Frank Broughton. By the way, this was published originally and reissued a number of times, I think, but 1999, 2000, and 2006, distributed by Grove Press in New York, New York. So, anyway, 1988 became the second summer of love. Acid House was happy to compare itself with the hippie idealism of 1967, pleased to be renewing the 60s mission of rebellion and personal discovery. Flyers copied Grateful Dead posters or used computer-generated fractal patterns to suggest a new psychedelia. Loose, colorful, unisex hippie fashions were creeping back. Timothy Leary rekindled his acid evangelism, seeing a psychedelic drug movement emerging on a scale that dwarfed his LSD generation. Acid House was a new year zero for British pop culture, which had spent the last few years telling you to be poised and sophisticated. Now, Acid House was suggesting you act like a kid and let music and dancing become the center of your life. Other concerns melted away. House music had introduced the endless beat, bringing a demand for all-night dancing marathons. Ecstasy inspired us to do this in large numbers. Legal clubbing simply couldn't cope. Large, illegal, unlicensed parties were the only way Acid House could accommodate its inevitable expansion. This was a culture inspired by the open-air clubs of Ibiza anyway. Like school kids screaming into the playground, we drove out of town and went mad in a field. The rave scene started with a few fairly spontaneous events thrown by London's acid house movers and shakers. Rare Groove had shown the way, and early raves like Hedonism just took the warehouse model, added lots more drugs, and switched things to a house soundtrack. These quickly caught the attention of more money-minded promoters, and raves expanded in size and ambition until they were huge encampments complete with car parking and fairground rides. For 3 or 4 summers, at events like Sunrise, Biology, and Energy, you could find yourself sharing the time of your life with thousands of like-minded souls in an aircraft hangar or muddy cowshed. Johnny Walker recalls DJing a biology event in 1989 at the height of the movement. Here, in an open field in Hertfordshire, the night sky streaked with lasers, gathered an incredible 12,000 ravers. Walker, up on stage, found himself playing for a churning sea of people, all locked into the groove of his records. It was breathtaking, quote, to be on stage and look out to see that many people dancing to what you're playing. Just incredible. Finding a rave was half the fun. As the sun went down, roads would be gridlocked with cars full of people getting ready for a party. Hanging out of windows, blasting music, looking for the right exit, or just following a growing mass of traffic until someone actually had a look at a map. While motorways were blocked as people approached a party or were turned back from one that had stopped. People recall one night when all 4 lanes of the A13, the main eastern artery into London, were jammed with cars all going the same way. The raves were an extreme, Mark Moore told Sean Bitter. At the time, it was a revolution. You knew things were going to change. You knew music was going to change. Everything was going to change. I think it carried on the torch of this kind of innocence and this kind of freedom of expression, not caring about the rules. Getting your car as far as you could, then leaving it in a hedgerow and walking the last bit, down the muddy lane, hearing the bass thump as you get closer, seeing the lights flash through the streets, meeting people as you go. Have some water. You keen before? Where have you driven from? Are you Jane from Bristol? See you in there. A rave was an idealized version of clubbing. It wasn't about visiting some purpose-built venue. It was about creating somewhere new. It was about building a city for a night. A club had a place in space and time, but a rave was made of possibilities. A rave existed in the minds of the people who danced together. Without them, it was nowhere, just a field off a motorway exit. While Margaret Thatcher denied the reality of society, in her face were thousands of people making one-night communities. Some commentators put it all down to AIDS. The fear of casual sex had driven a generation to find warmth in the company of thousands. Others decided it was a longing for a lost innocence. Where else did all these childlike fashions come from? Someone even pointed out that this was the first Walkman generation, and now people were desperate for music that was shared. Whatever the underlying forces at work, raves emphasized the ecstatic acid house ideal. It was people that counted above everything. Wow. What can I say?